Well, good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. You are live on Off-Doc TV. Your presenter is going to delve deeply into port matters, port issues. And today's analysis will dwell mostly on privatization of the Port of Mombasa and the Port of Lamu. Indeed, talk of privatization has been on for far too long. We have had so many cases in the past where there was resistance from the giant dock workers union. There were demonstrations, and these ones were able to stall the progress of privatization of ports of both Mombasa and Lamu. Politicians came out strongly in opposition. Citizens came out strongly in opposition of privatization of the Port of Mombasa. And this begs the question, which is going to form the basis of our today's analysis. What is the rationale behind privatization of the Port of Mombasa and the Port of Lamu? We all know that the government's program is to privatize non-performing government agencies, non-performing parastatals, non-performing government organizations, which depends entirely on the exchequer for their survival. These ones have been earmarked for privatization. But the Port of Mombasa is one of the most lucrative parastatals in this country. And the turnover of the Port of Mombasa runs into billions of shillings submitted to the Treasury every financial year. This includes also corporate tax, runs into billions of shillings. Indeed, it is the golden goose, the goose that laid the golden eggs. At one point, the government transferred the Port of Mombasa from the Ministry of Transport to the Ministry of Finance. Together with Pipeline, the most lucrative agencies were all grouped up under the Ministry of Finance because they were the cash cows for the government. So what would be the reason to privatize the ports of Mombasa? Because as far as I can see, and in this analysis, it is quite clear and open that privatization is now looming large. After the presidential order, the last time he visited the port of Mombasa, that the tender procedures for bringing in a private operator, the Port of Lamu, should commence immediately. And this begs the question that what would happen once the Port of Lamu has been privatized? What would happen when the Port of Mombasa, some parts of the Port of Mombasa is privatized? We are aware that berths 11 to 14 have been part of the deal to privatize, develop and privatize berth 11 to 14. What does that mean to the shipping world? What does this mean to the port users? What does this mean to the population, big population that depends entirely on the Port of Mombasa for their survival? What would be the implication when these facilities, government facilities, public facilities, have been privatized and placed in the hands of private investors? Indeed, looking critically in comparison between a public port and a private port, it is a fact that all the best performing ports of the world, all the bigger ports of the world are public. For instance, the port of Shanghai, the port of Guangzhou. Look at all the ports of Singapore. In Africa, look at the port of Durban, the port of Cape Town. All these are public ports, and they're the best performing ports in their regions. Why then would we go to the extent of privatizing Mombasa Port and Lamu Port? These are very strategic government facilities and offers a lot of support for socio-economic programs of the government, including the most recent government policy and blueprint on the blue economy. So why would we place this strategic facility in private hands? Private hands that will not be able to control. And the impact of privatizing the port would be far-reaching. First of all, right now the Port of Mombasa employs directly over 5,500 employees in gainful employment from the Port of Mombasa. Those who depend on the port indirectly goes into hundreds of thousands. This includes truck users. This includes even to the lowest of kiosk owners, canteens, where staff get their meals and they buy, including spare parts, including road lorries and their turnboys. Yeah, all these depend indirectly on the Port of Mombasa. And should it fall into private hands, then nobody would be able to predict what would really happen. First, employment for the people of this country is the first and biggest priority for the government of Kenya. For every podium they get onto is to indicate, give hope to the public that the government is serious in creating employment for the youth of this country. And therefore, putting this big, major strategic facility in the hands of a private operator will only mean one thing. Because I've looked at who are the private operators who are interested in the Port of Mombasa. I can see the Port of DP World coming up as the first contender. And DP World has shown on so many occasions their interest in moving into the Port of Mombasa and Port of Lamu. The other interested party is Transnet of South Africa. Transnet is a public entity, which means the Port of Durban and the Port of Cape Town are both public. They also shown interest in the Port of Lamu. But why then would the government give away a port that generates so much revenue for the government? And what guarantees that there'll be returns on investment if we were to privatize this port? That's where the question really begs. And like I've said, that the major ports of the world are public. But if you should go to the ports that are run by Jebel Ali, at the port of Jebel Ali, for instance, by DP World, then you see the kind of automation, the end-to-end operating system, the integrated security systems of that port. And you look and see how minimum there is human interventions in the operations and cargo movements within that port. If they would come to the Port of Lamu or Port of Mombasa, what would first happen? And this is very obvious. The first thing they'll do, they'll start with downsizing of staff. They must cut down on the wage bill by automating all the systems of the port. And therefore, there'll be massive layoff. We all understand what layoff means. And in those areas where a layoff has been done and been effected, there has been catastrophic sufferings of the people who depended largely on those earnings from the port or from the employees and those who depended indirectly on them. The government must look into this possibility and think again before subjecting so many people into suffering as a result of layoffs. Because no private entity is going to inherit the number of staff that are working in the port and subjecting them is changing all their processes into computerized processes. It will not work. Where is the voice of the union? Where is the voice of the giant dock workers union? Why are they silent? Because it is evident that this time round, privatization is coming to the port of Mombasa and to the port of Lamu. My second point is also very clear. And it's not rocket science, and therefore you don't have to think so much to see what's going to lie ahead. Should the port of Lamu be privatized? And it's a strategic location, almost to the Horn of Africa, and also to serve the East Coast. Should it fall in private operators' strategic plans, then automatically the port of Lamu will turn into a competitor against the port of Mombasa. Where will that place us? DP World is a giant operator. And the port of Jebel Ali in the United Arab Emirates is almost 90% transshipment volumes that make it tick. And remember, the port of Mombasa also feeds from Jebel Ali. Mombasa feeds from Jebel Ali. And that's why KPA management has strived so much to also build the port of Mombasa into a hub, into a transshipment hub, doing what we call the hub and spoke to Mauritius, to Zanzibar, even port of Dar es Salaam, Somalia, Djibouti. That status of the port of Mombasa will shift drastically once the biggest competitor lands at the port of Lamu. So why would you want to subject the port of Mombasa to a very powerful and very technologically advanced competitor at the port of Lamu? The investment in Lamu can only confirm to us that LAPSSET must come up with strategies to turn around the port of Lamu. In my previous video, I mentioned the fact that initially the interest of the port of Lamu was to provide the trade routes to southern Ethiopia and to southern Sudan. But those were the days of the technical war between these countries in Eritrea and also with Sudan. But now that peace has come, there's no longer any more interest in the use of that corridor, LAPSSET corridor, by South Sudan and Ethiopia. So what does that tell us? We must forecast the port of Lamu for transshipment volumes. And transshipment volumes, it will be competing with the port of Jebel Ali, run by the DP World. Now, should the DP World come and be a private operator in the port of Lamu, and we have it, it's a fact, it's no longer a rumor that they're also eyeing the port of Dar es Salaam as a private operator. That will spell doom for the port of Mombasa. It will spell doom for the transit volumes that passes through the port of Mombasa that might also divert to the other landlocked countries. So it is time to wake up for all those decision makers who wants to privatize part of the port. Can you imagine, even for a second, if Bath 1114 is developed by a private operator, and now it competes with the other parts run by the Kenya Ports Authority or by the government or by a public port, then the competition will be from within, not from without. So they must look again into the idea of privatizing these ports. The socioeconomic impact it will bear on the citizens of this country who are long suffering from unemployment. The youth do not have ways of social and economic empowerment, and they all depend on such government facility to create employment. But look at it again. The cost of shipment through the port of Mombasa is solely determined by the regulatory mechanism that is run by Kenya Ports Authority and also to the Ministry of Transport. The KPA tariff and rates is determined at the board level of Kenya Ports Authority and the ministry, and also goes for approval to the cabinet. So it's regulatory, and therefore the cost of shipment, which makes it attractive to use the Port of Mombasa, is determined internally. But should you bring a private developer from outside who has got leeway to determine the cost of shipment through the Port of Lamu or through the Port of Mombasa, then you have no control whatsoever on how you can market the Port of Mombasa. And that means that we are going to compromise the status as it is of the Port of Mombasa and reduce it to a feeder port. That will be catastrophic. That will spell doom. I'm raising this alarm as Off-Doc TV because we are part of the industry. We know where the pulse of the industry is. And we know where decisions made outside the industry, stakeholders, forums, can negatively impact on the way the ports operate, and the far-reaching effects of the socio-economic negative impacting on the population. Remember, the government has a strong Vision 2030, a flagship project in the port, which also includes the blue economy. The blue economy is meant to create massive employment opportunities. But should the port fall in the hands of private operators, then there'll be no control whatsoever on how the government can pursue its flagship project of Vision 2030, which includes also the blue economy. The government must rethink this decision to privatize the port. But should it be effected, then Kenyans should be ready, Kenyans should prepare for the challenges that lies ahead. Unemployment will be created due to downsizing. Unemployment will create a lot of socioeconomic challenges within the region that is served by the port. And remember, the economies of the regions that is served by the port are solely dependent on the port and its efficiency. But what does the Port of Mombasa, what does the Port of Lamu lack for them to be privatized? What do they lack? Both these two ports have got all it takes to handle any type of vessel. The Lamu port has got the deepest ports, which can take in post-Panamax vessels. We can take any type of container cellular vessels and be able to discharge at the most efficient rate than all the other ports, or like all the other ports. The Port of Mombasa is known to be a good performer only if the management of the port pulls its act together. Because both the Port of Mombasa and Lamu have got very efficient, skilled, well-trained workforce, well-motivated. It's only to critically review the performance level agreements with all the port users, the cargo interveners, and other clients using the ports, both of Lamu and of Mombasa. But again, as we move forward, we would also like to raise a few questions. What will be the model of privatization? What will be the model? Will it be a PPP kind of model, a public-private participation? Or will it be a BOT, build, operate, and transfer? And what will be the details of this tender that will identify the right operator? What will be the tender evaluation criteria? Will it be to operationalize the cargo areas? Will it be stevedoring? Or will it be specific functions of the port? For instance, groupage and degroupage of cargo, in other words, called stripping and staffing. Will those be the functions to be privatized? Will stevedoring, which is the key component of all port operations, be also part of the package? Will it include also the marine services, inclusive in that package? We need to have information over the nature of tender that will be sent out for the privatization of the Port of Lamu and the Port of Mombasa. If it must be that we must privatize these two strategic ports, then why don't we give priority to local investors, local entrepreneurs, or team up with multinationals, with our local, so that we have benefits of ownership of facilities that belongs to the Kenyan people? My appeal to who make decisions to privatize the port, because it has been looming for far too long. It has been resisted in the past. It must be resisted again so that we can save our people from disenfranchisement. We can save our people from social and economic downturn. In my next video, I'll be talking about the possible competing ports of the Dubai Port world. I've been to the port of Jebel Ali. I've also been to the port of Durban and Cape Town. And I'm able to make very objective comparison between these ports and the port of Mombasa. In the next video, I'll be focusing on some of the stakeholders who needs to take the center stage in the privatization program of these ports. I'm talking about Kenya Shippers Council. I'm talking about KIFWA. I'm including in this forum the giant dock workers union, so that the welfare and the interest of the members can be protected and be safeguarded. Until next time, remember to subscribe. Remember to click on the notification button, which you see on your screen, so that next time we roll out another video like this one, you'll be notified real time. Don't forget to like, click on the thumbs up. Until next time, thank you very much. This is Off Dock TV.